Hey guys, it's Vince. Today in this video we have a content creator who wants to show you him building his plasma CNC controller. I cannot emphasize enough, guys, these videos are done for your education and for you to understand best practice so you do not build instability inside of your production robot. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so today I'm going to start wiring up this plasma table here. So I got the motor drivers, Arduino.
Now, the first thing we notice with this content creator, like many others before him that are working with plasma CNC robots, is that they tend to love to use USB motion controllers. In this case, this content creator is using an Arduino, and once again, Arduinos are known to be unstable with CNC robots. I'm going to put it on screen, once again, relaying the message, not stating it myself. I'm showing you that these units using universal serial bus are known to give the end users random disconnect issues. And this is dealing with regular CNC routers, regular CNC mills, CNC lathes. This, when you're using with a CNC plasma cutter, you're essentially putting gas on the fire, mainly because plasma cutters generate large amounts of electricity. Why? Because they're pulling more amps than virtually any other CNC robot. So think about that for a minute. If these units are pulling 30, 40, 50 amps, then what you're essentially doing is taking that little board that was never designed for CNC robots, and you're saying, hey, I'm going to expose you to this amount of electricity, this amount of electromagnetic interference, and then you're essentially hoping for the best. When I see that done, and you see these guys do this without doing any research, which once again I'm putting on screen here, all of my videos, and if this is the first video you've watched of mine, I cannot emphasize enough. Go back, watch just a couple more, and you'll find out really quick there's a pattern. Most of these content creators follow the same pattern. Number one, they don't think for themselves. Number two, what they actually do is mimic what another guy did or whatever a guy said on a forum, and that's how they've come to this end result, for some reason of thinking that what they're doing is correct. Essentially what they do is show their audience how to build instability in their robot.
A little relay to activate the torch on the plasma cutter, power source. I bought these little guys off Amazon. I'm planning on mounting everything in here in this plastic ammo case, and somewhat watertight. I can mount these guys, and this is like plug in for my motors and for the wires that are going to go with the plasma cutter. Yeah. I only have 3 or 4 different colored wires to work with, so I have to keep track of some of this in my head because
this content creator, just like clockwork, if you've watched any of my previous videos, you understand this is the typical format they follow. Lay the components out on a table, and then they're going to discuss them to the best of their ability, missing out on critical details that would yield a stable CNC plasma robot. And this happens like clockwork. We can see here he's discussing everything he thinks he understands, and he misses out on the proper double shielded cable being required in order to mitigate EMI. It has to be properly grounded to a ground bus. Never brought that up. Talks about using an electrical enclosure made out of plastic, making it virtually impossible to ground unless you insert a metal plate with all of your components mounted to it, and then have a lead that comes externally to go to a wall socket's ground, or even better, a ground rod, which in his case would be more applicable due to the fact that we are using a plasma cutter. So looking at this, guys, you have to ask yourself, if he sabotages himself, who cares? I mean, that's, if you want to put a roof on your house and it's got a leak, you put the roof on, accept the responsibility. The problem goes where these guys are not held accountable, except by you. If they show this content, it's done incorrectly, and someone else follows it, that's where we have a problem. Because again, they can say, hey, I've watched your channel and I was just being a fan and I thought you knew what you were doing. Unfortunately, you don't. Now, should they be smart? Absolutely. But should these guys be responsible for what they're posting? I think absolutely. Okay, so it looks like we're up to the portion of the video where he fast forwards his build.
Okay, so I got all my stuff wired up here. I've mounted on this piece of wood.
I, like you, ask myself every time I see a video where a content creator employs wood as the mounting substrate for all of their electronics within their electronics enclosure, how that's even possible. Like, where do these people live that they don't understand that wood is a flammable substrate? And when you mount electronics that could potentially spark, arc, or cause a direct fire because it's flammable, you have to wonder, where does their logic lie? Have they ever seen a breaker box in any of their homes or a building or basement, whatever it may be? It's always metal. So why would you use an electronics enclosure and use it with a piece of wood? It just doesn't make logical sense. And we see this consistently. So it's not a one-off situation. Many of you have pointed it out. I can't believe that these content creators do that. They do it. Many of you look at this and shake your head. And I see this and it's terrifying, because this guy is essentially telling his audience, hey guys, this is what I did. And he's basically saying, if you do this, it's nothing wrong with it. He certainly didn't leave a disclosure saying, hey, you know what, this is what I did. It's not best practice. Wood is flammable. I don't recommend you do it. Or better yet, hey, I don't recommend you do this because, God forbid, there is a catastrophic failure and a fire happens. It doesn't even have to be that catastrophic to actually instigate a fire. You are not going to get paid, because as soon as that fire marshal comes with an inspector for your insurance, pending you have it, which most of you do, you're SOL. And if you don't believe me, contact your insurance company. Find out.
These are the connectors that are going to go through this. Like I said, I'm going to use this ammo box here, this plastic ammo box. These guys will go through, and one's for each motor. I have a connector here, and I have for what's going to go to the plasma torch. Those are going to go through the box. Right now I'm just looking up the power source. Say everything's going to go through the box like that. And yeah, so let's just keep going.
I'll never understand why these content creators want their audience to believe that you could build a stable CNC plasma production robot for under $1,000. I'll never understand this. And realistically, the only way that's ever even close to achievable is if you do all of the work and possess all of the knowledge yourself in both forms, for the mechatronics, for the chassis, as well as the electronics. I have yet to see it done correctly. I have yet to see it on my channel to where I've showed you guys, hey, this is the way it's supposed to be done. Every base has been covered. You know why? Because it's time consuming. It's something that many end users don't know, or they have knowledge in one facet but lack knowledge in another. The bottom line is this. Anybody who actually is looking at getting involved in CNC plasma production robotics can spend much less than 20 or 40K of what we typically see done in a commercial grade robot. The question here is how much is reasonable to be expected to spend to get a fully functional, stable CNC plasma production robot? And the answer to that is easily between $5,000 and $10,000. That is a huge savings, and still very, very able to generate large amounts of profit. So much so that it can produce enough profit to pay itself off easily within the first month to 2 months. Then I get the other end of the spectrum with guys that claim they're hobbyists. You know who you are. You're the guys that message me in the comments, well, you know, I'm just a hobbyist. I'm expanding my shop. It's bullshit. You're not a hobbyist. Let me tell you what you are. You're a guy who has an unrealized business. You're the same guys that come to me and go, I want my circle to be perfectly round. I want my squares to be perfectly square. Yet, you feel you're a hobbyist. Well, guess what? That's the same requirements of a guy using his system for business use. Do you know why? Because accuracy isn't based on your application. And facts don't care about your feelings. Understand that if you don't have the money, then save the money to get to what you need to purchase what you need to do. And the fact of the matter is, if you're not willing to do that, and you're not willing to accept the responsibility of saying, hey, you know what? I can't build a stable production robot because I don't have the knowledge to understand all of the electronics and all of the chassis foundation to fabricate it. Well, then You're just wasting your own time. And you do videos like this, and that's why these content creators do, just to get paid. They want to show you, hey, this is what I did. Doesn't mean it's right, just showing you what they did.
So like I said earlier, I use this ammo box for all my electronics and wiring and stuff like that. So I have like, so then I have the output for the X-axis motor and the Y-axis motor. This is going to go to the plasma cutter to light up the torch. And this is for future use, which I do plan on adding the Z-axis to this. But for right now, I just want to get it running. So anyhow, this is what it looks like inside. I just mount everything on a board.
It's times like these that make me really appreciative that content creators use videos to document what they're doing. Now, many of you have watched my channel for some time and you've seen some pretty horrible systems on my channel. This has to be one of the worst. I mean, the way that he's mounted the electronics inside of an enclosure that's utterly inviting a fire. I mean, he has the drives mounted on top of the power supply with virtually no cooling area in that ammo box, on top of the fact he uses wood. I mean, guys, other than this guy pouring gasoline on this, I don't see how anyone could want to put this on a video for his audience to see. And we're not talking about an audience that's really that small. I mean, he's still got well over 1,000 subs. So, I mean, this guy is really dispersing this as, hey, this is what I did. Look at me. I don't get that. I just don't. The logic behind this makes no sense. Now, to many of you that look at this and say, well, you know, this is the best he could do, or this is the best he's got as far as what he could produce with the income he has. That's bullshit. The fact of the matter is, if you don't know what you're doing, don't put it out there. The thing to keep in mind here is, number one, safety. I mean, this is a flammable electrical enclosure the way he's designed it, let alone the loss of time and money if end users follow the practices shown in this video, which he's illustrating for essentially that purpose, on top of to get paid for, which makes no sense, as everything he's done in this video is done incorrectly. It's that simple. Okay, I don't want to see a roof get put up by a guy that doesn't know what he's doing, who is going to influence others to do the same thing and generate holes in their roof. Why would you want that? It makes no sense. And keep in mind, and I've said this before, many of these guys, just like him, are on forums. So when you're on forums, this is the kind of work that they're delegating as far as, hey, you know what? I can relate to your problem. Let me help you. And I've said this before as well. Think about who you're getting help from when you don't know the source. Because this guy could be on any forum, doing anything, and giving advice. Is this someone you take advice from? I mean, with me, I'm validated. You're going to have to pay me, of course, because my information actually is worthy of the payment. This right here is terrible. I mean, it's utterly terrible, and it's dangerous. And that's where I think that we start looking at this, and we start as a group, a community, at saying, you know what? It goes far beyond that of selling CNC motion components. It goes into a field of you're producing dangerous content that can hurt people. And the saddest part is that it really does hurt people, even if it's not catastrophic failure like I discussed with a fire. It still shows that you're building controllers that are not done in best practice to make sure that they're stable. And when I say stable, they produce stable production. If this robot does not produce stable production because of the controller that he's built, then what good is it? That's the whole point of having a robot, is that it stably produces and replaces human work. If it can't do that, it's completely useless. Who's going to buy a Tesla if the Tesla doesn't hold up to the fact that it's an electric supercar? I mean, Elon be broke. Think about it. This is absolutely ridiculous. And yet, I'll have guys that'll come back to me and say, well, what you're saying is wrong, and this guy is just doing the best he can. Is he? Is he? These same people wouldn't buy from this guy. I would have no clients if I sold stuff like this. And I'd be absolutely SOL, and you know what? I would be justified that way. So I'm just curious as to what you guys think of this. I'd like to see it in the comments.
So if you're considering building a plasma table, go to JD Garage and get yourself a set of plans, man, because if I can build this, you can build this. It's not that hard. Their plans are pretty simple to follow. They make it pretty.
Look, I've said it before earlier in the video, and I'll say it again. If a content creator, or anyone for that matter, wants to build a system themselves and that system is not stable and they have problems with it, then they're accountable for it. There's no one else to blame. There is an issue, though, if that same person decides that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to go online and I'm going to use my channel as a leverage point to show everybody for content that I built this controller and I'm claiming it's done. And they say it's done, everyone in their audience is assuming it's done correctly. There was no disclosure in this video. There was no, hey, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just following what I'm seeing someone else do, and it could be done wrong. They'll never say that because, of course, if they say that, many of you would just tune out because why would you want to do things wrong? Although, if you don't find my channel until after, that's what you actually find out, is that the controller is built incorrectly. And when do most of you find my channel? You find my channel when all of a sudden you're over there searching Google because you find out that the robot's acting strange. Something isn't working right. Circles aren't round. The machine just randomly stops. You get ghosting effects. You'll find switches get triggered. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I don't know what's going on. You do your Google search, boom, my channel pops up, and guess what happens? You figure out that this person who claimed that everything is easy, if I can do it, you can do it. They try to dumb it down to where this genre, everybody understands it. Yet, here's my question, sir. How come there are so many forums, and forums only exist with problems? Only in this genre we see lengths and lengths of problems with these particular robotics. And I'm saying particular robotics in the sense of CNC. When end users build their own system, there is a plethora of issues. They tell us about all the background that they have, but if you haven't built a robot, and sir, you haven't built a robot, we don't see a torch mounted in this, we don't see it cutting, we don't know the length of cut you'll be able to perform because you didn't illustrate it. So my question is to all of you thinking about spending your money in this genre, make sense of the fact that the only thing my channel is actually guilty of is telling you to think before you spend your money. I would rather you save your money, not spend it with me or anyone, than to piss it away on a guy who obviously doesn't understand this genre enough to even illustrate the machine cutting. If he was so proud of what he just did, he's just showing you a jog. That doesn't mean the machine is built. There's a huge misconception there. Movement doesn't mean the machine is functional as a production robot. Yes, I said production robot, and yes, I don't care if once again you're going to throw the word hobbyist up. It doesn't matter. It's producing. That's what it's designed to do. And until it produces, it's a failure. And unfortunately, end users have a problem with that. They think because motion is present, they now have a functional robot. Until a torch is mounted, until substrate is underneath, and it's cutting reliably. And when I say reliably, I'm talking in terms of a month to 2 months of stable use, then you have nothing. You have nothing. And that's why it's critical for all of you to build correctly the first time, because at least the variables are then removed of, hey, did I do grounding? Oh, hey, did I use the proper cables? There's too much bullshit online. And the fact of the matter is, if these guys understood what these electronics had to do, then they would actually do it themselves in their own system. Okay guys, in this portion of the video, I'm going to show you in real time with a real robot what EMI penetration looks like on step and direction signals, as well as just EMI penetration to such a high level that the robot basically becomes totally disoriented and goes virtually nowhere. I've been working with 2 commercial clients now for some time. on a system design that they've been working on. What you're about to see is initial testing prior to them contacting me on proper grounding for their system, and this is what they experienced prior to turning the torch on. And then you'll see when the torch is cycled on what many of you experience. Now again, there are different levels of EMI penetration. In certain instances, they can be massive like you see here, and in other instances you'll get what's known, and I've discussed this in the earlier part of the video, called ghosting, where again you may have certain levels of stability, but over duration you might get just, you know, periods of just inconsistent instability where an axis will do something that it wasn't programmed to. It'll stop. It'll bump into things. You'll get all kinds of random effects. Check it out. We'll go over it together. Okay, so we saw the robot. It went in and did its thing. It traced everything. It moved properly. Everything appeared to be normal. And this is where most guys feel, hey, I've built the robot correctly. Everything is set. My controller's set. I have nothing to worry about. Okay, and now we're about to see what happens when the torch is on and the EMI is present, because that torch, once it fires, I've said this in numerous videos, it is literally like a nuclear explosion of EMI that goes off because we're drawing so many amps, and this table is all metal, it's fully conductive, and it acts as an antenna, transpiring that electrical energy all into your electronics. And this is what you'll see and what you'll experience, and I hope many of you listen closely if you're not using double shielded cables. And again, use the best cables you can afford. If you're serious about building a robot for production, I cannot emphasize that more than anything. This is the circulatory system of your robot. If it's not done correctly, you will have stability issues. Here's what actually happened when they cycled on the torch. There you go. There you go. So now we've seen the entire process. Torch off, everything seems right. Torch moves around properly. As soon as the torch is fired, all of a sudden all control is basically lost and the robot does nothing and you have a paperweight.